This is the October 15th, 2020 town hall between Donald Trump and Savannah Guthrie. I just want to point out that they're going to be talking about herd immunity, and Guthrie, I think, makes some mistakes, and I'll point them out as they happen.
I want to pick up on something you just said. You said we're rounding the corner.
I believe we're rounding the corner.
Now, 10% of the country approximately has had COVID. That means 80, 90%, let's do the math, is still vulnerable.
That's wrong. That's wrong. Just because they've identified 6 million people doesn't mean they identified everyone who's had COVID. There's probably 60 million people who've actually already been contacted, immersed, dealt with it, and just powered through, or their body just didn't react to it, okay? Now, I threw out that number, but I think it's a safe number to say multiply it by 10. However many cases they find, multiply it by 10. Her implication that only 6 million people have dealt with COVID based on their tests is wrong. There are people who are not getting tested because they're afraid they're going to be taken into the hospital and lose their rights, okay? That's a real thing. And early on, when COVID-19 first happened, there were people that were being forced into ventilators, whether they needed them or not. And they were being forced by medical trainees who were trying to be heroes because the media was pumping them up so much. So there was an early spike that we don't know. And there's been a big behind-the-scenes deal for hospital immunity for all the screw-ups they did early on, okay? So for her to now say that only 6 or 7 million people have gotten it, we don't know. It could be, like I said, multiply it by 10. We probably have 60 million people who have had an interaction with COVID, and they either didn't get it or their body fought it off. And now, could they still get it? I don't know. But to just simply go only by the number of cases is not fair. It's just not fair.
Right.
There's been some talk, including from the White House lately, that perhaps it approves of what's called herd immunity. That's where you basically just let young people and everybody get sick. You try to protect the old people and those who are sick, and hopefully it gets up to a certain level, and now we're all immune.
Yeah.
So let's just be clear about it. It also means more deaths.
Now, what she just said, what Savannah Guthrie just said, you could apply to the policy of quarantining people and not treating them in any way, not offering them any therapy, any type of therapy, okay? It doesn't have to be a drug. It doesn't have to be a vaccine. It could be homeopathic. It could be aromatherapy. It could be certain kinds of foods that we think actually help the body's immune system or just fight off virus anyway. It could be raw garlic, onion, pepper. It could be breathing therapies. It could even be temperature-based therapy, just sweating, you know. There's just so many things that were never suggested, tried, or considered when coronavirus, early on, when you're first in quarantine and you test sick, but they're not really saying, you know, you're totally, like, you got to go to the hospital, like you may just fight this off, okay? Well, if you may just fight this off, why aren't you giving those people something that is natural and homeopathic? Why aren't we doing tests? When you do nothing for people who are in quarantine for 14 days, you're basically giving them a placebo. So we literally have given 6 to 7 million people placebos who have been put in quarantine and never offered them any other alternative that did not necessarily mean a vaccine or a high-cost drug. Nothing. So remember that. That's very important, because now they're talking about herd immunity like, oh, you're so evil. You just want to let everybody get sick and the survival of the fittest. Well, I would counter and say, you're kind of evil yourself. You sentence people to 14 days in quarantine and you let the disease dominate them, which is what Trump said. He said, don't let COVID-19 dominate you. So it's just perspective, and it's frightening that the media can only see one side, that they can't see the other side. There still has been no questioning of why it's okay to put people in quarantine for 14 days and just basically offer them a placebo and say, you know what, Either you get better or you don't. Then if you don't get better, we'll up your diagnosis. That's what they did for the last 6 months. And it was wrong, just as wrong as if you don't believe in herd immunity. Absolutely identical, but Savannah Guthrie's probably never even considered the idea of why aren't we doing anything with people? What if we had an apartment in quarantine? What if we took, floors 2, 4, and 6 and just tell them do what you want, and then floors 5, 6, and 7. We want you to cut an onion in half or in quarters and just leave it in the room for a day and then throw it out. And do this every day or every 2 days. Throw out the onion when it starts to get bad. Throw it out and put another onion out in the air. So it's just in the air for you to breathe. We're actually going to try oxygen tents. Okay, and we're gonna again use aromatherapy with the oxygen tent. And we want you to breathe, do breathing exercises during the day and stretching and keep active, things like that. I mean, activity, the body has to shed the virus, right? If you're inactive, your bowel movements are going to be slower. I don't mean to be gross, but they're going to be slower. If you're active, they're going to be more often. So wouldn't you want to shed whatever way, through your breathing, through sweating, through pooping, wouldn't you want to shed the virus as quickly as possible just to weaken it and let your body be able to fight it off? Isn't that an option? Has it been considered? That's something a person could do on their own. Not offered, not considered, not tested, not pondered. So, again, just pointing out, you got to look, whenever you see a news anchor asking these sophisticated questions, they're always going to be based on only one perspective. They're not able to flip around to the other side and go, okay, well, what's the reverse here? They can't do it. I can do it because I don't know enough. I think it's that when you get a lot of smart people who all get taught the same, they all learn the same, they all read the same, they all talk about the same things, they're all I think they're even afraid to go against each other or even to wonder about anything without looking like an idiot. So they just go along. And I think that's what's going on. I'm willing to be the happy idiot here and ask the questions. Because these questions have not been asked, and therefore they've not been answered, and therefore they've not been debunked either. So, you say herd immunity. I say you gave, not Donald Trump, I say Guthrie gave, is basically, the medical industry gave placebos to everybody and snookered everybody for the last 6 months. Anybody in quarantine got a placebo and that was it. And that is not ethical, in my opinion.
Do you support herd immunity as a strategy? Essentially just let people get sick.
The cure cannot be worse than the problem itself. We did the right thing. We were expected to lose 2,200,000 people and maybe more than that. We're at 210,000 people. One person is too much. It should have never happened because of China. It happened because of China. And you have to get that and understand that. But it shouldn't have happened. But we were expected to lose. If you look at the original charts from original doctors who are respected by everybody, 2,200,000
That 2 million figure, though, is if you literally did nothing.
People.
The 2 million figure is if you did absolutely nothing, it would be 2.
So, we're at 10% of that figure. And now she's just being a nanny. Now she's just arguing to argue. See, she cannot, look what she's doing. She cannot concede even 1 point to Donald Trump. She won't throughout the whole, I can tell you now, I'm just in the beginning of the town hall, she's not going to concede anything that Trump says. Trump just made a perfectly valid point. We're supposed to lose 2 million people. We're at 200,000, and that's too many. And what does she say? She just comes up with, well, blah, 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 blah. Always has to have an answer. See, she's just chomping at the bit. Trump's got a great point. All we've been exposed to are these idiots going online and every day raising the tally of how many died as if Trump's responsible for every death. And nobody's been saying, well, they were saying we could lose 2 million if we didn't do anything. And obviously we did something, right? And not only that, I have another video with a chart that shows a very slow decline in the number of cases in March, April, and May. And then in June, when all the protests had started and the end of May, they just spiked right up. So Trump got blamed for that. So not only did he not get blamed for 3 months of a very slow, steady decline, not only did he not get credited for the decline, he then got blamed for the spike that was caused by the protests.
I think it would be 2 million. The question is, should the deaths be better than 200,000 when relative to the rest of the world we have a worse death rate?
I left North Carolina, which I love. I left Pennsylvania. We won a big case in Michigan because that governor has a lockdown where nobody but her husband can do anything. He can go voting and do whatever he wants, but nobody else can. The fact is we're winning all these cases because it's unconstitutional what they're doing. And I think they're doing it for political reasons. But the fact is the cure...
And he's right. You see, whatever Trump does, the Democrats and the media are going to blame him. If he super shuts down the country and the economy goes into the tank, I mean, Biden's own political advisors said they were going to do this. They're going to hit him on the economy tanking, and they're going to hit him on COVID-19 deaths. So how do you do that? How do you blame somebody for too many deaths, but oh, the economy tanked? So to get less deaths, you would have had to tank the economy even more. So this is just so horrible and so disingenuous, and I wouldn't trust any party. I would not trust a party that simply wants to win so badly that they're going to blame everything on the president when this was the year where we should have all been working together. And that's what they did.